What's up guys, Sean here, and today, continuing the road to Secret Wars, we're going to be looking at Blade, released in 1998. Blade follows a half-human, half-vampire who goes on a mission to prevent a sect of vampires from unleashing an ancient vampire prophecy. To give you some major historical context here, this movie is monumentally important. Back in 1998, Marvel was fresh out of bankruptcy, and their only major theatrical footprint at the time was Howard the Duck. Blade didn't just save Marvel's cinematic future, it completely proved that these properties could be cool, dark, and highly profitable. The character actually goes all the way back to 1973, created by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan in Tomb of Dracula issue 10, and this live-action adaptation serves as the absolute baseline for street-level Marvel stories in the wider multiverse. The movie starts with a childbirth from a woman who has been bitten by a vampire. After she gives birth, she ends up dying. Then we cut to this young couple, the girl of which is leading her boyfriend to a meat factory where there is currently a night rave going on. And that track playing, the pump panel remix of New Order's Confusion, instantly sets the entire aesthetic for late 90s action horror. The rave suddenly becomes a bloodbath as the sprinklers begin raining blood, and the guy tries to escape until he runs into Blade. From a practical effects standpoint, you have to appreciate how visceral this looks. Warehouse sprinkler system, creating an incredible tactile horror atmosphere that modern CGI just can't match. Blade, being the total badass that he is, makes quick work of the vampires, and then a vampire henchman, Quinn, shows up and tries to send his crew to take out Blade, though he kills all of them pretty quickly, though he leaves Quinn alive to send his boss, Frost, a message. Paramedics and cops begin to arrive, and so Blade leaves. The paramedics take Quinn to the hospital where he attacks two doctors, including one named Karen, though Blade is able to save her mid-bite and takes her back to his hideout, where we meet Abraham Whistler, who injects her with a cure and explains that he and Blade are vampire hunters. Here's a massive piece of comic trivia for you. Abraham Whistler, played flawlessly by Chris Christopherson, actually wasn't created for the comic books. It was originally created for Spider-Man the Animated Series in the 90s, but the film production loved the concept so much they adapted him into live action before his animated episodes even finished airing. It's a brilliant bit of early connective tissue showing how the wider Marvel universe shaped itself. Back with the vampire, we find that Deacon Frost is a bit of a rebel, and the elder vampires feel his actions, like the nightclubs, are endangering their race. Stephen Dorff brings this fantastic generational conflict to the role, acting as the reckless, turned vampire rebelling against the old money, pure blood elite like Dragonetti, played by Udo Kier. Blade decides to take Karen back to her apartment, while Dragonetti, one of the elders, finds out about Frost's plan to enact an ancient vampire prophecy. Once Karen returns to her apartment, she is attacked by a familiar named Krieger, a vampire wannabe. Fortunately, Blade followed Karen and takes Krieger out, and though Blade tries to get him to reveal his next blood delivery site, Krieger is able to escape. Though Blade and Karen are able to track him down, and they end up at a club where they do some digging. Meanwhile, Frost has uncovered the secret to the prophecy. At the same time, Blade and Karen come across Pearl, a super smart and super obese vampire working for Frost, and they interrogate Pearl to find out Frost's plan to awaken the blood god La Magra. This scene is straight out of a horror movie, using a massive, grotesque animatronic suit mixed with early digital effects, and Karen using a UV light like a tanning bed from hell is just peak creativity. After killing Pearl, they stumble across a vampire library where they are ambushed by Quinn and a group of vampires, who manage to pin Blade down, though Whistler arrives and saves them. They escape into the subway where they are separated from Whistler, using that classic mentor isolation trope to ramp up the stakes. And Blade and Karen make it onto a train where Karen discovers that he's not a human nor a vampire. Whistler explains Blade's backstory as well as the fact that he shares all the strengths vampires have and none of the weaknesses, and Karen vows to find a cure for him. After Quinn returns to Frost's hideout, Frost and his vampire goons kidnap Dragonetti, defang him, and leave him to be completely eviscerated by the sun, which opens a spot for Frost to take his place on the council. Karen, having snuck out to the hospital, returns with a new weapon for Blade, a chemical called ETTA, that becomes explosive when it comes into contact with vampire blood. Blade meets with Frost on the street, who, with a hostage, offers him a truce for Blade to join him. Blade refuses, so Frost throws the little girl into the street, and Blade decides to save her instead of putting Frost down. Karen is able to cure herself and starts working on the cure for Blade, but they are suddenly attacked by vampires, and though they're able to take out a few of them, Frost and Quinn arrive, and after Frost viciously beats Whistler, he has Quinn bite him. Blade arrives after the altercation is over, though he comes across a barely alive Whistler, who tells him that they took Karen and asks for his gun so he can die before becoming a vampire. Wesley Snipes delivers some incredible subtle acting in this heavy moment of silent grief before the off-screen gunshot hits. Blade meditates and then gears up, finally going after Frost's stronghold, where he slaughters everyone in his way, and we see the EDTA in action, which is glorious effect-wise. This whole tactical gearing up sequence is just peak late 90s action style. Blade ends up coming across Frost's office, where he is shocked to find his mother in Frost's bed, distracts Blade long enough for Frost to sneak up on him and subdue him, completely weaponizing Blade's deepest childhood trauma against him. While in captivity, Karen reveals that while the cure would work on Blade, he would lose all his enhanced strengths and just become a mortal man. After a very uncomfortable scene involving Blade and his mother, they strap him into this device that starts draining his blood to power the ritual. Karen is able to escape and makes her way to Blade, who is bleeding out, so she offers him some of her blood, which gives him a power boost. Kills his mother, and then we get the best scene in the movie with Blade versus all the vampires. The ritual begins and all the heads of the Vampire Council are slowly sacrificed. This gives Frost the power of La Magra. He takes out Quinn first, and then we get to see Wesley Snipes really show off his martial arts chops as he quickly takes out each one. Snipes is a legitimate high-ranking black belt in Shotokan Karate and Hapkido, performing his own stunts here, which is why the fluid, aggressive choreography holds up so well. After finishing with a nice flourish, Blade engages Frost in a sword duel that's pretty cool, all things considered. He finds that slicing him in half does nothing, most of his attacks are doing nothing, so he notices his stash of EDTA that Frost had disregarded earlier, and he decides to use that to take down Frost once and for all.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Fun fact about that line, writer David S. Goyer actually heard Wesley Snipes say that exact phrase in a real-life conversation, and he loved the sheer swagger of it so much that he put it right into the climax. The original ending involved Frost physically becoming La Magra in this giant CGI blob of blood, but it didn't look great and it didn't do well with test audiences, and I think what we got was ultimately the right choice. Blade and Karen escape, and though Karen offers to take Blade back to the lab to work on a cure for him, Blade rejects and says she can help him by making him more serum. There was actually an alternate ending for this scene where Morbius was in the background, but it was scrapped as New Line didn't actually own the rights to the character. But it's cool that the thought was there. This scene was actually directed by Goyer to set up Blade 2, and it's a crazy historical reminder of how fractured Marvel's live-action character rights were across Hollywood back then, long before unified cinematic universes or multiversal timelines were even a thought. The movie ends with Moscow with a vampire about to attack a woman before Blade shows up and the movie cuts to credits. Alright, so that was Blade, the true beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse if you want to count his appearance in Deadpool and Wolverine. Hearing him look directly at the camera in the void and say,
"There's only been one Blade. There's only ever gonna be one Blade,"
completely validates why this 1998 masterpiece still holds up today. It bridges a nearly 30-year legacy directly into the multiversal crossover storytelling that's leading us straight to Secret Wars. I love this movie. Growing up, it didn't hook me, but recently it's been one of those movies I can never get sick of watching. So let's talk about the positives, of which they're really the only things I can talk about. Like, I don't have any negatives or mixed aspects of this movie. I think Wesley Snipes is awesome in the role. He brings the physicality and the stone-cold seriousness that the character needs, and I can't imagine another actor playing the role, until Mahershala Ali finally gets his chance, of course. The gore and special effects are awesome, and you have to appreciate that for a long time, this was one of the few R-rated Marvel movies, and it embraces that. I don't really have any mixed or negative things to say about this one. I think it's a perfect movie, so with that being said, Blade is our first, but definitely not our last, 10 out of 10. Starting off our ranking series with an absolute gold standard means every project after this is going to have to fight hard to match this peak tier. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this movie. Is it underrated as hell, or is it another one of those pre-MCU Marvel bombs? Leave a like and subscribe and enjoy the coming roads to Secret Wars.